Yo, what's up, guys? How's it going? Trickster here. Haven't made a video in a couple weeks. I've been in Florida. Just got back a couple days ago. Still been going hard on OSCP. This is week 4. Pretty much officially week 4, I would say, in the whole OSCP journey. Let's see. A lot has happened. I've been going at the boxes and going at the exercises. Pretty much the whole Christmas break and New Year's and all of that. I've had a lot of time to put into that, and also a lot of time to do other things as well. As far as hours, I've been putting in 5 hours a day. I've actually been to really keep myself committed and focused during that time. One thing I've started doing was, and this is actually a trick that I learned from back when I used to play a bunch of instruments, is I used to, when I used to try to sit down to practice, a lot of times I'd be distracted and stuff with other things happening. And I would never practice as much as I wanted to, or I never really knew. It was kind of like half me being distracted, half me practicing. So one thing I did to combat that was I would set a timer on my phone, and I'd be like, for this amount of time, I'm going to focus in and, work on practicing or whatever. So I sort of employed the same idea with the hacking stuff. So I wanted to spend 5 hours a day on OSCP, so I would set the timer on my phone for 5 hours, and for 5 hours I would be focused in on that, and that's all I would do. And occasionally I would, or not occasionally, afterwards, after that 5 hours, then I'd be free to do whatever. I'd be free to, watch sports or go outside, do whatever I wanted to do. So that was pretty cool. I think that's a strategy that has been working pretty nicely so far for me. And I think if you can balance something like that, where you're still putting in the hours, you're still putting in the time pretty hard, but you're also not feeling guilty for spending time outside. Because you need that time. And a lot of times, I've heard a lot of people say this and stuff. I've watched other people on YouTube with OSCP and stuff, and I've talked to various people, and one thing that people say is a lot of times with these boxes, if you're really frustrated and you've been going at one box for hours and hours and hours, and you take that break and you just allow yourself to do whatever, something non-related, and you come back to it, and it's you instantly figure it out. Sometimes it's sometimes you're too in the weeds, that sometimes you need that fresh set of eyes, and just to approach things with a fresh mindset, and it can be really helpful. And that actually was my experience on one box that I was working on over the break. I spent a lot of time on it, and then I had to travel for a day. I came back here, and then yesterday I was able to get a shell on it pretty quickly. It was pretty quickly I was able to identify an exploit to go for. Because, some of these boxes have a lot of running services on them. There's a few that really challenge you to enumerate. And one thing about enumeration is, knowing the tools you can use. They teach you a bunch of tools that you can use to enumerate various services and stuff like that. But one of the tricky things about enumeration that I feel a lot of times doesn't get talked about is not just the tools that you use to enumerate. Of course, that's important, but not just the tools, but your ability to decipher the output from those tools and to quickly look at a ton of output and identify what's important and, what is an actual potential vulnerability that you could exploit. And I feel that's something that, you learn, of course, with time, with experience. The more, for example, the first time you look at an Nmap scan, you might be overwhelmed. Then after a while, doing a lot of CTFs and assessments and stuff like that, you begin to become a lot more efficient at, scanning your eyes, just scanning through the Nmap file and identifying pretty quickly where to go from there, essentially. So in a similar vein, I feel enumeration is a lot like that. You have a ton of running services on a box, and there's so many different tools and stuff you can run. But then after you run it, just really over time, figuring out what's important, like what output is important. And of course, not every box is the same, of course. So it's like just being able to identify the low-hanging fruit, I would say, first of all. And then, of course, if there's no low-hanging fruit, then you got to get more and more specific and more complex in your enumeration until eventually you find an opening, basically. And the nice thing, of course, about OSCP are all of the boxes are exploitable. If you're in a real-world scenario, of course, that might not necessarily be the case. So that makes it even trickier. So yeah, OSCP definitely, I think, a good starting point for pen testing, even though it is considered like intermediate advanced by a lot of people. And don't get me wrong, it is really hard. But I would still say, even with all of that, I would still say that it is like an entry. It's an entry level exam in that I feel like anyone with some decent networking experience could pass it if they're willing to put in the effort. That's one thing I've heard a lot of, and after spending some time with the OSCP labs, I do believe that's true, actually. That because I've known people, and I think I mentioned this before maybe, but I've known people that have spent like, their career like as a pen tester, and like they've taken the exam. It took them, many attempts or many hours and attempts and all of this of investment in order to pass the OSCP. And I've seen people that have no prior background in it, just have some networking background. It took them hours still, of course, and they were also able to pass. So I've still yet to hear someone say, oh yeah, it was just really easy. I just took it, I passed, and it wasn't a challenge. Like, I've yet to meet that person. I mean, I'm sure, there might be that exception somewhere out there, but, that's not really, the case. So it's like, I do feel that if if any of you guys are thinking about taking the OSCP, and you at least just have some basic network experience, not even much, just enough to be able to know, like, okay, port 22, that's SSH, port 80, that's a HTTP web server, HTTPS 443. Like, if you just know your basic ports, stuff like that, and like very basic, like what IP addresses are and DNS and stuff like that, then I feel like that's enough in and of itself to get started. I would say if you guys are really on the fence about OSCP, do a few hack the box challenges. There's a site called hackthebox.eu if you guys aren't familiar, and it's got some like really good CTFs on there. And I would say, while not all of them are OSCP like boxes and they're not all realistic, some of them are a little bit CTF-y, is in the sense that it's like, maybe they require like steganography or something that you probably wouldn't encounter in the real world or in OSCP. There are boxes like that, but at the same time, there's also a lot of really good boxes on there that could definitely help you when it comes to pen testing and OSCP and all that stuff, for sure. I know that, I've done only about like 20, 30 boxes on there, but I sometimes call upon that knowledge to work on the boxes and OSCP. It's been of help. So yeah, but definitely if you guys are on the fence about OSCP, I would say just do it. Just go for it. No matter what, it's going to take time. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be rewarding. So yeah, that's what I would say. Because even the boxes that I've had trouble with, and keep in mind, I'm still very in the beginning with this, but I have gotten a chance to really look at a lot of these lab boxes. But in terms of rooting them, I've only rooted 3 boxes so far. So it's still a long way to go. But I will say, of these 3 boxes, they've very much been like, when I finally did figure out a way to root them, it's like, well, what I did wasn't that complex. I basically just did, I basically took a little bit of pre-existing knowledge, nothing too crazy. And, basically the knowledge that they give you in the book with how to enumerate and how to, run your scans and enumerate services and stuff like that. And then I just Googled stuff. I looked around at things, and I Googled like, vulnerabilities and like how, looks for exploits, or like, how certain things can basically I did some additional research that, you know, for the nuance of the situation, like, you know, you may know how to exploit a particular service, but, you know, maybe they're using a different, you know, something slightly different, and you're going to have to look it up anyways, even if you understand the general concept of it. So I feel like there's a lot of stuff like that where it's like they expect you to have to look it up, you know? That's the thing about this, especially in the real world when you're dealing with, you know, this ever-changing technology. You know, things are always changing. Things are always, you know, challenging you. And there's no way that you could memorize all this stuff, and you should, you know, you're not expected to. You're going to, in the real world, you're going to use Google, and, you know, they expect you to use it as well. So it's like a lot of this stuff you could never prepare for it really enough to the point that you would never have to look anything up. That's not even an end goal anyways. So basically what I'm saying is, I'm being a little long-winded here, but basically what I'm saying is that you'll never be prepared enough. Even if you think you got to be prepared a little bit more, you'll never be prepared to the point where, you know, it's easy. No matter what, it's going to be hard. It's supposed to be hard. That's the whole merit of all of this, you know? That's the thing, right? So, yeah, if you guys are on the fence about it, definitely do it. But yeah, as far as I'll just wrap up with like my experience these past 2 weeks. Pretty much got done with all of the exercises. A couple more questions here or there. I'll save it for a little bit later. I'll just clean it up a little bit, and then I'll be done with that. You know, like I said, I got 3 boxes. 1 box was a real challenge, but I really feel like I learned a lot from it. It was really interesting. So yeah, and that really went to show me that it's like, if you spend enough time, even if a box is really hard, if you spend enough time trying to get it, eventually you will get it. And it's so rewarding when you do, and it really changes your outlook on things. It's like, you know what, I can do this, you know. I can do this. It's not going to be easy, but I know I can do this. It's going to be hard, you know. Sometimes you're going to be really frustrated, spending hours going down a rabbit hole, and then later figuring out, you know, wait, it's actually, what if I try this and then it works, and you're like, well, I just wasted so much time. But once you do get it, once you do figure it out, these are pretty sick. Like, it's pretty fun. So yeah, that's the kind of experience I've had so far. I think I was going to close out with one other thing, though. I can't think about what it was exactly. But yeah, I would just basically say, yeah, if you're on the fence about it, definitely do it. You're going to really start to believe in yourself. If you're willing to put in the time doing these boxes, you're going to struggle at first. You know, it's going to be hard, but then you're really going to start believing in yourself, and it's going to be awesome. That being said, it's still hard. But, yeah, and I remember what I was going to say now is, so tonight I'm going to be attacking a box that I've gotten an initial shell on already. Of course, I don't want to disclose too much information on it, but I've got an initial shell on it already. So I'm trying to do a Privesk, but the tricky thing is I'm only the Apache user. I'm not even like a user account. I don't even have access to get into the like www home directory. So yeah, that's going to be kind of tricky. And reading the forums, I saw some people say that like half the people said their exploit gave them root, and half of the people said their exploit gave them a user on the system, like, you know, Apache, I'm guessing. So it's unfortunate my exploit didn't give me root straight away. Hopefully there's a Privesk opportunity on it. I'm hoping it's not like, well, they wanted you to exploit it the other way, so there's not even any local vulnerability on it. But, you know, most likely there is. So I'm going to really be putting the next 4 or 5 hours into trying to get this Privesk working here tonight. And if I spend several hours and I can't get it, maybe I'll look at other exploits that I could use that might get me root straight away. But yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. And yeah, I'll definitely sync up with you guys next week to let you know how I'm doing. And yeah, if you have any questions about the OSCP, any comments, anything, leave it down in the section below. And yeah, I'll get back to you. See you guys.